Welcome to another Good Dads podcast. I am J Fotsch, alongside our guests, some facilitators, if you will, for Good Dads, Janice and Benjy. We appreciate you guys being here. We're going to talk, obviously, about Good Dads, but if you would, Janice, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
And my family.
Yeah.
I am a retired educator, having taught for 45 years. Most of that was at the elementary level, but I've also taught at the college level. Preferred the elementary.
Really?
Oh,
I was getting
yes.
ready to ask, why is that? Is the elementary kids more on top of things than the college kids?
Because a second grader has a reason for acting like a second grader. My husband and I just celebrated our 53rd anniversary Tuesday.
Oh, congratulations.
We've got 2 married daughters, 1 grandson who will graduate from the University of Arkansas next month.
Oh, okay. Now, is he one of the second graders you were referring to?
Oh, no, he was perfect.
In grandma's eyes. Yeah, right? That is so awesome. Benjy, tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, well, I'm a retired physician. I practice medicine here in Springfield for about 40 years, and I'm married. We've been married for almost 49 years now. We have 3 children. They all live locally, all 3 adult children and 5 grandchildren. So we get together all the time. They're our favorite people.
Oh, man, that is so awesome. So, I mean, just hearing both of your family backgrounds, I mean, you kind of understand why you got, involved in Good Dads. But tell us about when you first started and what that was like for you, Janice. Well,
Dr. Baker was a member of my church, and over 10 years ago, she started talking about this Good Dads program, and I just couldn't grasp it or exactly what she was talking about. And finally, it got to the point where she said, okay, we have a program. I'd like for you to come and teach for us. Well, she said teach. That did it. So that's when I started. And
did you feel an itch for it since you had been retired?
Teaching, always. I mean, I've never lost. I love it.
Yeah, because you would think some people are like, oh, I've been retired and I kind of want to stay retired, but I've heard that about teachers. You just want to teach whatever it is.
It's just in your blood.
Yeah.
So I think for me, what was exciting, especially as an elementary teacher and counselor, I knew the importance for children of having both parents in their lives. And it seems like there are more resources for single moms than single dads. And so when Dr. Baker started talking about this program to help fathers become more involved in their children's lives, I said, yeah, this is something I'd like to be a part of and I'd like to do.
So tell us a little bit about what you teach. What does that look like? And I mean, I'm not expecting you to go through the whole curriculum, but what do you talk to the dads about? What do you kind of focus on for your classes?
It's interesting. The curriculum offers excellent parenting skills and life skills. And a lot of what I teach these guys are things that I taught to 5th and 6th graders, anger management, communication skills. Just last night, we talked about being a single parent, solo parent if it's a single dad. Mm-hmm. So talking about relationships.
You know what's interesting, and I've talked to Dr. Baker about this so much, is that it seems like life is we get on this roller coaster where we almost try to complicate things in a certain, in our 30s and 40s, and then all of a sudden we go to a certain different decade and we're like, I think I just need to get back to the simplicity of things. I think I just need to make things a little bit simpler. I think I was maybe overthinking some of those things. So when you talk about what I taught my 5th and 6th graders, sometimes that's what it's not necessarily we've forgotten about it, but it is a good reminder to keep things simple. And that's kind of what we talk about with some of our dads, because some of our dads are like, well, do I need to have some kind of certain hobby with my kids, or do I need to go to this extravagant level? And we're like, no, just be present. Just listen, talk. You know what I mean? Just be in the moment with them before bedtime, before, they go to school. And that's getting kind of back to the basics. You guys talk about that in your class at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Read books. And we have to be conscious of where these dads are. And you can buy books at garage sales. There's secondhand bookstores. There's there's all kinds of ways, all kinds of resources that these men can use to do some fun things with their kids. One man said to me, "I love seeing my kids, but it's breaking me." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I take them to Toys R Us and I give them $5, $10 every weekend." And I go, "No, you don't have to do that. Do you remember?" "No, you don't. You're too young. When we used to play Cowboys and Indians."
Yeah, I did.
And there's all the imaginary games. Play Spider-Man. But there's so many things that you can do that you don't need to spend money on. And I think a lot of the fathers today maybe think they have to have money to have a good time with their kids. And like you said, it's going back to the basics and the simpler things.
Really is.
Presence.
Sure, and I think about even like me growing up with my dad, just the simple things and the simple conversations that we had. And I remember my nephew was talking about the best thing that he did all summer, and he went to, my parents, grandma and grandpa, took him to the beach. They took him to Silver Dollar City. They took him to all these places, and he's like, my favorite was going to Hy-Vee. I got in the race car cart and shopped with grandpa. Out of all of the things that they did all summer, all these like fun little vacations. And to your point, it's just those simple moments of connection that it's so important for dads and kids.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. So Benjy, tell us a little bit about what you do with Good Dads.
Well, so during my medical practice, I didn't have a lot of children in my practice. In fact, way less than 1%. They were all adults. And many of the adults that were having difficulty coping or had behavioral or characterological problems, they couldn't cope with the chronic pain that they had, many of them had very poor relationships with their parents. And I noticed over and over again that those relationships were so important in helping people grow up to be contributing and effective members of society. So that's why I got involved with Good Dads. And boy, I tell you, when I go to those courses that we facilitate, the men that are there, they've turned a corner. They've been challenged by incarceration or drug addiction, and they've been through treatment for that, and they're just trying to learn how to cope and how to get back with their children, with their families, and they see the importance that fathers can have on the development of their children, and they just want to get back and get back with it. So I find it very rewarding to be involved with it.
So kind of to your point on, you talked about the chronic pain and the stress that occurs just from, your experiences. I mean, from a doctor standpoint, we hear about that sometimes where it's like, oh, it's all in your head, or, oh, well, your shoulder pain, you need to get an operation, or it's interesting to hear a doctor say something like, no, it's your life experiences, and it's for sure stress and how you handle the thoughts that come in your mind and how you deal with it, because it can cause physical problems to your body.
Absolutely. The manifestation of that pain from inability to cope and deal with the life around the world around you, it at least is contributed to by the upbringing that you've had. And so I think it's very important, the parental influence and the people that have had great relationships with their parents seem a lot more solid and able to roll with life's punches.
Yeah. So how do you go about that? Obviously they're willing in your classes. I'm sure you talk about it with some of these dads to get around that corner, to kind of turn that around, because I'm sure that would have to be tough, because kind of back to your point too, Janice, is going back to the 5th and 6th grade, hey, we just need to focus on the simplicity, and yeah, you didn't have that in your life, but this is how you do it for your kids now moving forward.
Exactly. It's a generational thing, and many of the dads that are in our programs have had the same experiences, bad experiences growing up without really a good relationship with their fathers, and they see how important it could have been in their lives and how they yearn for it with their fathers. And they want to turn it around and help their children so that they don't have to go through that same sort of negative influence.
Yeah, and it's so great, like some of the dads that we do highlight to see how they have changed their lives and how that it is possible to break the cycle. Like there's two ways to handle generational upbringing or anything. That is, I can keep going down the path of my great grandpa, my grandpa, and my dad, or I can be the one that breaks the generational cycle for my kids. And it is hard, and I would imagine like some of those guys maybe have struggled with some of those things in your classes.
Yeah, absolutely. They've kind of turned a corner, many of them, and they're really motivated to try to change because they see the negative influence that it's had on them and their previous generations, and the potential that it could be for their children, either good or bad, and they want it to be good for their children. And as they learn these skills too, the men then they're a lot more effective at getting back integrated in society, holding a job and having better relationships with either the co-parents or their bosses or their employees in some cases, and they really learn better behaviors and better tools for managing their own lives.
Yeah, and I know, even for me, but I need to get reminded of the simple things too, because I don't know, I can complicate things real quick if I let it, and it can happen, and you don't even realize it sometimes, and then I go back to those, maybe some of your classes, Janice, and be like, oh yeah, that's a really good 101 thing that I need to really work on, and make sure that I'm starting my day and going, hey, this is the simple checklist that I need to do with the kids, so I am being a good influence, and me and Dr. Baker have talked this about years, and I tell my wife, I'm like, those kids are watching us, whether we think they are or not, they are watching everything that we're doing. This Good Dads podcast is brought to you in part by our generous supporters. This week we'd like to thank the following: Table Rock Shores, Prime Inc., Mr. and Mrs. Bob and Susan Biney, Springfield Sign, Han DeBuff Government Relations, Midmo Bank, Pinnacle Family Advisors. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Visit our website at gooddads.com to learn how to contribute to the Good Dads mission. So, and that kind of leads me into my next question. And Janice, this is good to start with you. As we move forward into the new year with Good Dads, we're kind of talking about couples also. We obviously have to have that support. How important is it? You mentioned the moms and how there is a lot of support for moms, but how important is it for spouses to support dads on some of this? Because we've kind of had the angle through a lot of decades of dads support the family and support mom, but how does this kind of look for the spouses?
Well, I think, as Benjy mentioned, the importance of relationships, and whether a father is with the mother of his child or not, there is still a relationship there. And the better that the two adults can work together, the better for the child, of course. And like you said, children watch us. And a child will notice how his dad treats his mom. And that's something that the men need to think about is, am I reflecting to my child what I want him to know, what I want him to learn, how I want him to be when he grows up? So being able just to communicate, to get along, to have a working relationship, a civil relationship, I think that's very important for the child.
Yeah, it's something too, like me and my wife have talked about, and she's, especially with my stepdaughter, she's like, I want her to make sure she knows what a man should treat a woman, because that'll reflect in her relationship. And I'm like, right. And now we have a son who's one, and I'm like, vice versa. Right. You know what I mean? So you have a son and a daughter, and it's almost kind of like we are both examples of a relationship later on that they, will or will not be in.
And I think too, and probably you've seen this too, Benjy, that some of the men that come to our sessions have not had good relationships with the women in their lives. And they sometimes feel that the women put them down, they work against them. So if we can offer courses through Good Dads that help the man and the woman work together, that's just a win-win-win situation for everybody.
You're absolutely right about that. So many of the men that are in those programs are estranged from their co-parent or their spouse, their previous spouse, and the mother of their children, and they don't understand communication skills at all. They don't know, they can't recognize when they have stress building up in their bodies and how they might react negatively and show anger in those relationships. It's all negative. And so the programs that we do, I think, are pretty effective at helping men see that stress building up and how to handle it and how to communicate when they get into those negative situations.
I'm just asking for a friend here. What are some of those? What are some of those to make sure when you feel the stress are building up? Am I meditating, Pilates?
We actually go through the buildup, and helping them recognize the physiologic changes that are occurring in their bodies, the high heart rate, the breathing situation, the feeling of redness coming into their face, the clenching of the fist, to recognize when that's happening so that they can try to put a curb on it a little bit. And so I think that's the key, is to help them recognize when it's happening, and then how to handle it. You got to take a deep breath, count to 1 to 5 to 10, maybe to 20, whatever it takes to just sort of calm down, take a deep breath, and filter what you're going to say,
Man, ain't that the truth. I have a group of guys, we talk about that, about pausing. And it's not even it's with anything. It's with jobs, with kids, with relationships, with family, anything. Like, if the first thought comes to my mind, why don't I just hold on to that thought for at least an hour? And then decide, or even sleep on it, and then decide either tomorrow or an hour from now if I put it in an email, or if I text it, or if I react to it. And then, like, the pause, kind of like what you're saying, like, recognize it, like, because am I going to feel that way in an hour? Am I going to feel the same way tomorrow? If I do, different conversation. But if it's just a moment to where it's just building up and my reaction, in other times I would just go ahead and say it, what's ever on my mind, and react to it, and that's not helpful to anyone, and especially myself. But that's a perfect example of that, and that's gosh, man, what a great skill to use for anyone.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we talk about the physicality of it. You've got these feelings, and regardless of how the stress gets there, it's there, and it needs to come out one way or another. And like you said, Benjy, the important thing is to recognize when you feel that stress and then know what to do about it. And sometimes it's as simple as putting a pillow over your head and screaming, or, get outside and shoot some baskets or bat some balls or something, but you need to get that physical release. Mm-hmm. And the problem's still there, but then you're better able to deal with it without hurting yourself, right, almost, or without hurting somebody else. So that doesn't mean the problem goes away. But if you deal with the physicality of the stress, you're better able to deal with the problem.
Yeah, we teach them the effectiveness and how to initiate a timeout so that they can go out and release that negative energy. But then make an appointment, make a promise to come back and readdress the issues.
I used to tell the kids, it's like if you've ever made s'mores, and you got the graham crackers and you roast the marshmallows, kids like to burn them, and then you put that in the chocolate and you squish it and the marshmallow comes out. When you feel stressed, you can try and bury it. How was your day? Fine. And it's like that marshmallow, that stress is going to come out one way or another. Yeah. So if you become aware of it and you know how to deal with it, it's just better for everybody.
Yeah. And I know Benjy, I know you hit upon some of the classes that you do, but Janice, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. Good Dads want to remind everyone that's just for all dads, and like me, I can get, when you're talking about whatever kind of dads that you're doing a class with, it's all good lessons for me because I forget this stuff. I got to be reminded of it, so it's all kind of a nice way to just remind yourself and have that, as we talk about dads talking with other dads, that relation when you kind of get them in a group setting, Janice, and you have them in your class and they have like-minded situations where they can kind of bond together and be like, oh, this is happening to you? Okay, I thought I was alone. And it could be as simple as, my kid is biting other kids at age 2, and it's comes to find out it's like, well, that's kind of what they do, unfortunately, sometimes. But it's, it's a phase. Here's what you can do. I think that sometimes we kind of isolate ourselves and box ourselves in and think that it's our problem or it's our kid's problem. And sometimes it's just what everybody kind of goes through as being a parent.
Absolutely. We're all similar beings, dads that have, men that have had poor relationships all their lives and men that have had great relationships and cope well. We all could have improvement, and these programs are good for all dads. When I started facilitating these courses, I learned so much about positive communication skills and stress management, even though I dealt with it as a practicing physician for so many years and as a father for over 40 years now.
Yeah, you're like, I'm okay with preaching it, but man, when I go home, I don't want to apply it.
Yeah, we could all have improvements,
Yeah,
right. They're great programs for everybody.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I think of myself like watching one of these podcasts, and since I've done so many of them, it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, that's what I do. But it's like, sometimes we don't. I mean, the matter of fact is, like, if I look at myself in the mirror and go, wow, am I hitting all of these checkpoints? Like, am I going down the list of everything you guys just mentioned? Am I doing this every day? The answer is no. Like, I forget about some of them. 1 year I'll go, man, I didn't do that well the last couple of months. So it's just always to keep an open mind and just go, hey, we're all trying to do this, and it's hard and it's life, and I think that's what's so great about you guys is you get these groups of dads together and just kind of share that, like, we're all figuring this out together. We're all working through it together.
And that's one thing I love. It's not just about what we have to present and teach, but it's about this group of men, and they become comfortable sharing their stories, their feelings, and oh yeah, that happened to me, and they're helping each other. And before we go on, I have to say, the very first time I did this, I thought, who am I as a woman to tell you how to be a good dad? And so on my very first classes, first of all, the women will always teach with another man, and I think that lends credibility. But I say to the men, let's address the elephant in the room. Who am I as a woman to tell you how to be a good father? And I say, well, number one, I had a good father, and I'm married to a good father. And through this course of discussion, I can bring a woman's perspective to it.
Yep.
So there is room for women facilitators in good dads.
Yeah, because there's all different kinds of windows of perception. Like, I mean, their dads have daughters. You know what I mean? And you've been a daughter, so I mean, it's all different kinds of perception. I mean, it's sometimes like, when you're talking to your kid and they're like, oh, well, you'd never understood, and I'm like, well, I've been 7 before. I know it may have been a long time ago, but I have been. And, I can remember some of it. Maybe not all of it. But.
I mean, it's really good for the men in the program to see women like Janice that comes in and can communicate with them, because many of them have had such negative relationships with women in the past, and they feel like, oh, they're not truth tellers, and they don't care and all this other stuff. And they see people like Janice come in that really cares and can get through those barriers. I think it's a really good example for those men in the programs that we have.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. So kind of in closing here, what would you tell folks that are kind of like, oh, I don't know if I would do this, or how can I do this, or anyone else that would want to get involved? Because I mean, what a wonderful story about both of you. Like you're just kind of retirement, but you can teach a certain angle of it, which I think is so wonderful. And then the teacher in you, just like, I'm ready to teach. I'm ready to teach. I'll, give them away as much as I possibly can. But what would you tell other dads and other people that could possibly help out dads, not only dads, but as we move forward in this new year, just couples of kids?
Well, being a facilitator is it's very encouraging for me to see men who really are trying hard to learn new techniques and skills and gain the knowledge necessary to help their children. And, I totally changed my perspective on these men that, and particularly in the New Pathways program. And the New Pathways program has men that have gone through addiction problems and incarceration, and they're misogynistic, and they go through these programs. They got a lot of street smarts, but when they kind of turn the corner and sort of learn better skills, it's very cool to see them getting back with their children, particularly at graduation. We go to the graduation, and the children are there that they've had problems with, and the children are so encouraged at this new dad that they have. And so it's a very fulfilling thing for me, and I really like it because of that.
Yeah.
I would say if anybody's interested in becoming a facilitator, Good Dads provides good instruction for facilitators. They don't just send you out there. There's a lot of preparation. Like I said, you always go with another co-facilitator. I find it personally very rewarding. These men will come in and say, I got to talk to my kid last weekend, or I got to have my kid overnight, and they're so excited. And to think that maybe I had a small part in helping that to happen, or in helping any one man to become not only a better father, but a father who's more aware. That's just very exciting to me, that I may have had a small part in that. When I drive to the classes, last night I was just down at the other building on Walnut Street, but I always pray that I say one thing that may help one man that night. And if that happens, then all the effort has been worth it.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Benjy, for all you do for Good Dads, and we appreciate you being on this podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.